Here to give you a little insight into our speaker this evening, please help me welcome Chris Rhyme, Principal of the Business Transition Group. Help me welcome.
Well, good evening. It is a tremendous honor and privilege to introduce a friend and a mentor in Eric Chester. And just a quick word to all the people on this side of the room, some awesome stuff will be up on the screen. So if you can't see it, I would urge you to move over and get yourself positioned so you can see all the cool stuff that's going to be happening up to the right here. So with that, I'll introduce Eric. He is a Colorado native, one of the seemingly few around here left. And he was a high school teacher and football coach before he decided he wanted to be a motivational speaker for youth, an ambitious undertaking to be sure. And he did just that, speaking to thousands of high schools around the country. And in that process, he co-authored 8 books in this Teen Power series on how to motivate youth and lead exceptional lives as young people. And then in late 1999, he kept getting these calls from employers asking this question: how is it that we motivate our frontline workforce to have great work ethic and to deliver great products to our customers? And so he spent the next 15 years developing, training, researching, speaking with the best, and writing on this topic of creating a great workforce and instilling in that workforce great work ethic. And then in 2004, he was inducted into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame, as recognizing him as one of the elite speakers across the country. He's written 4 books. These books are Generation Why, Getting Them to Give a Damn, Reviving Work Ethic, and his most recent book, debuting in 1 week, that you guys can purchase thanks to the tattered cover back to the left here tonight. Thank you, tattered cover. On Fire at Work, How to Ignite Passion in Their People Without Burning Them Out. He's also the founder of the Center for Work Ethic and Development, which has curriculum currently being taught in approximately 500 schools and universities around the country. Please help me in welcoming my friend, Eric Chester.
Awesome. He's not just my friend, he's my son-in-law. Greatest day of my life is when I got to walk my daughter down the aisle and give her away to Chris, because, I talk about millennials. You talk about millennials and they're kind of, and then all of a sudden God puts into your life this guy that go, not all of them. And I'm just kidding, because I love kids. In fact, my whole life has been school-to-work transition. As Chris mentioned, I'm a former high school business teacher and coach, turned motivational speaker for young people, made me a very religious man. Well, you come to the middle of a gymnasium and somebody hands you a microphone, you're staring at about 2,000 kids, you find God real fast. Spent about 15 years talking almost exclusively to kids. And for the past 15 years, I've worked almost exclusively with companies and organizations that really look upon youth as their front line, the front line of their workforce. And all of us have a picture in our minds when we say front line, millennials, young people that we interface with in businesses. That person who pours your morning coffee, that individual that comes and comes over to clean your pool or vacuum your carpet or whatever that might be. The service professionals, the people that are right on that front line, we have different opinions of them. Let me tell you, if you're from the Denver metro area, most municipalities have zoning regulations that prohibit retailers from just putting out a sign anytime they want to have a sale. You see, if you want to have a sale, to get around that, you have to get a human being to hold the sign for you. This is government's way of creating jobs, because now we have this new profession called a human sign holder, right? And you've seen them. Most of the time, the job is just hold a sign. That's all you have to just stand there and hold a sign. And most of the time, people get bored. They sit down. They lean them up against their knees. Well, every once in a while, you might see one that just goes above and beyond. So my wife and I were doing our Saturday morning routine where we go to Costco and Shopko and all the big box stores after we get our coffee. It takes about 2 hours. And when we first passed this one intersection out in Littleton, we happened to notice this one gentleman who was doing such a job, holding a sign. And he wasn't just holding the sign, though. This young gentleman was actually participating, dancing with the sign. We kind of commented on it. We went and did our shopping, came back about 2 hours later, This guy had upped his game. He wasn't tired. He was going crazy with this sign. So much so that I decided it was time to pull over and to pull out my little iPhone and talk to him. And the conversation went something like this.
Dude, you got it together, man. How much they pay you to do that? What? How much do they pay you?
$7.86 an hour.
Really?
Today's my first day.
You're doing awesome, dude. How old are you?
14.
14. First job?
First day. Do you remember your first job? Do you remember your first day on the job? I remember my first day on the job because in my family, and my sisters are here, they will corroborate this with you. In my family, if you wanted a car, you had to buy your own car. No one was going to hand you the keys to a car on your 16th birthday. You wanted a car, you got to get a job. You had to find a place close enough to you could walk to or ride your bike. And for me, that spelled out 2 words. Growing up in Wheat Ridge, 2 words came to mind. Baskin Robbins. Because I liked ice cream, and I could meet chicks. So I went to Baskin Robbins. It was 1973. I was a 16-year-old kid. And when I said, hey, I'd like to apply for a job, and they said, sorry, we're not hiring. So I went home and I told Dad, Dad, looks like you got to buy me a car. They're not hiring at the Baskin Robbins. Well, if you laugh, that's because you had a dad like mine. He saw that as a little learning opportunity. Decided it was time that we had a little talk. Turned out to be more of a shared monologue because he dismissed my sisters from the dinner table and began recanting his childhood. Now, he told this story umpteen times, but that night it really resonated. He talked about growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he had lost his father from a stroke several years earlier, and his mother was working all kinds of odd jobs just trying to make enough money just to support the family. And my dad had to drop out of school in 10th grade to find odd jobs just to help the family survive. Well, by the time he hits 18 years of age, he knew there was a better place to live than Raleigh, North Carolina. He had seen a movie filmed in Chicago, Illinois. It mesmerized him. He said, that's the land of opportunity. So he sold all his worldly possessions, and he bought a one-way bus ticket. And it took him 3 days on that bus to get from Raleigh, North Carolina to Chicago, Illinois. And he was full of hope and optimism in that bus ride until he stepped off that bus at the intersection of Michigan Avenue and Wacker Drive, downtown Chicago. It was January the 28th, 1939. He had a nickel in his pocket and the clothes on his back. And instead of being greeted by hope and opportunity, he saw a lot of people huddled around trash cans that had been set on fire. They were just trying to keep their hands warm. There were long lines of people waiting for free bread and soup kitchens, and any mention of a job drew hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates. My dad had to learn to find work just to survive, and he was going to make darn sure his son knew how to find work when work was hard to find. See, the fact that Baskin Robbins wasn't hiring was not going to be a deterrent to his son working there. He said, Eric, they're not going to hire you just because you happen to go in and ask for a job. There's only one reason any employer will ever hire you. And that's if you can solve problems for them. So then I said something real stupid. I said, how do I do that? Because it launches into about another 3 hours worth of conversation. And Dad began to tell me that I had to separate myself from the pack. And he began to school me, tell me how to do my research. I had to learn something about Baskin Robbins. I had to learn about that particular Baskin Robbins. So a few days later, I'd done my homework and I was ready to try. And I went back into that Baskin Robbins, and this time I asked for Mr. Alvin Harrison. Mr. Harrison owned the franchise, the Baskin Robbins in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. Mr. Harrison gave me the front counter and goes, yeah, kid, what do you want? Mr. Harrison, my name is Eric Chester. I'm here to scoop ice cream for you to delight your customers and improve your profits. He took a step back. And maybe he handed me an application. I think he thought I was going to go home, but I was ready because I brought a pen and a clipboard. And I sat down in the lobby and I began to fill out this application in its entirety. And every blank was filled out. I had names, references. By the time I was done, it was a Rembrandt. I handed it back to Mr. Harrison. He was reviewing the application. And I said, may I have an interview? Sir. So, right, kid, what time do you get out of school? I said, 3 o'clock. All right, see you tomorrow around 4. I was there at 3:45 because my dad said, if you're on time, you're 15 minutes late. And I showed up wearing a tie to work at Baskin Robbins. And I came alone. I did not bring my posse. He invited me back to his office. It's just a closet with a table and 2 chairs. But I stood until he invited me to sit. Dad's words echoing inside my head, don't let your shoulder blades touch the back of that chair. So I was leaning forward, I had a smile on my face, and began to answer all his questions with complete enthusiastic responses. Yes, Mr. Harrison, absolutely, Mr. Harrison. No job is too big or too small, Mr. Harrison. I'm the man for that job. And that's just when he asked me where I lived. Oh, I was ready. I knew more about ice cream than he did. In fact, when the interview slowed down a little bit, it was time to impress him with my knowledge because I had memorized all 31 flavors, alphabetically. Oh, he was impressed, so I moved him for the close. Mr. Harrison, if I'm going to scoop ice cream for you to delight your customers and improve your profits, sir, I need to be on the schedule, so when do I start? Spun his chair around, grabbed the schedule off the back wall, pulled out his pen, and said, Katie, coming tomorrow. And I went home and told my mom, bake me a celebration meal. Picked up the phone, called my father, who came home early from work. I'd never seen my father leave work early. I'm out shooting hoops in the driveway with my buddies. All of a sudden, his big old car, Buick, pulls up into the driveway. Big old 6'4", 250-pound man comes running at me like a linebacker, picks me up like a load of mashed potatoes, starts swinging me around, going, I'm so proud of you, son. And then without releasing his grip, he put his finger in my face and said, but if you get fired, don't come home. We can all remember that first job. Now, what about today? We really schooling young people in terms of how to get a job? Oh, maybe we are. I have employers tell me all the time, the kid that I hired and the kid that showed up were two different kids. I don't get it. What happened? I said, you didn't interview the kids, you interviewed their parents. Because we teach our kids what they're going to say in the interview. There's books written on it, subject, videos. We can tell them how to get the job. We just don't tell them how to keep the job, which is probably the most important part of the job, right? So what winds up happening is we might be a little frightened with the workforce.